All right, so I had a friend ask me to do. He wanted to see the deck list for my Smothering Tithe Guildgate deck, and I thought it'd be fun to do my first deck tech. So this is the deck here, and I kind of wrote some notes, but I'm gonna go through it kind of top to bottom. I don't know what order this is in, but I will actually. I'll start with the main part of the deck. There's a few combo pieces that make the whole deck work, and I'm usually not a big fan of combo decks, but there's enough card draw in this that the combo comes up pretty naturally, and while it's not coming up, the deck's pretty good at just kind of holding out. So Smothering Tithe, whenever an opponent draws a card, they have to pay 2 mana, and if they can't, you get a colorless treasure token that you can add 1 mana of any color with. And so that combined with basically emergency powers, which makes you both players draw 7 new cards, and it will put a permanent in play that has converted mana cost 7 or less. So that 7 draw means that the opponent has to pay 14 mana for every Smothering Tithe in play, and sometimes there's 2 in play. Or so they might have to pay 28 mana, or else you're going to get a bunch of treasure tokens, and you also get to put a 7 mana permanent into play, and usually that is Thousand Year Storm, though I've hard cast it once in a while, because this deck is pretty good at surviving till it has 6 mana. But usually you'll put this into play with emergency powers. I usually cast this on my turn, and that will start making all your spells have a storm count. And so if it's the second spell you've cast, it makes 1 copy of the spell. If it's the third spell you've cast, it makes 2 copies, and so on. So the rest of the deck so basically we're just going to make a bunch of copies of spells and then kill our opponent with a lightning strike. And that is basically how we win the game. There is not really a backup plan right now. There is a little room for changing things up. Maybe you could put a boomerang in there or something. But let's just kind of go through the deck top to bottom. So the Grazer here, the Arboreal Grazer, we have just one of. It enters the battlefield, and when it comes into play, you can put a land from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. Now, we're running 27 land. So usually if it's turn 1, turn 2, you're going to have more than 1 land in your hand, so it helps you ramp a little bit. Later on in the game, you're going to have Guild Summit in play, and every Guildgate you play draws you a bunch of cards. So sometimes you'll have 2 copies in play, so this is actually just like a really cheap, a lot of times it's like an Ancestral Recall for us, but good blocker early game against aggro. If you get it late game, it's really easy to cycle, so that's why that's in there. Just one of them. Revitalize, again, so I think the weakness of combo decks is staying alive till turn 4, 5, 6 against aggro. So Revitalize helps keep your life total up, draws you a card, ramps you into stuff. Almost everything that isn't land draws you cards, except Lightning Strike, which is our win condition. I used to run 1 Lightning Strike, so there is some room to go down some Lightning Strikes. Sometimes early game I use it for removal, and just to kind of slow the onslaught down a little bit, and it works pretty good. Root Snare, also kind of a fog, and it's just gonna help us get through a turn if they've got some heavy aggro. Sometimes I will hold this until they've got enough power down that Gates Ablaze just gives me a lot of value. Growth Spiral, 4 of these automatically cantrips whether you have Guild Summit in play or not, but so you draw a card, put another land into play. This is great on turn 2 or 3 to help ramp you into your Smothering Tithes, into the payoffs of this card. The big spells are 7, 6 mana, so A little ramp is really helpful, and sometimes you can ramp a Plaza of Harmony and draw or gain 3 life. So sort of does Revitalize plus puts land in play for the same amount of mana, so that's always good if you have it in your hand. Guild Summit, just our card draw engine. I've found that this is almost better than like having a Howling Mine in play, even if the opponent never got to draw cards. Like you have, I think, 22 Guild Gates. So Guild Summit is almost always gonna get you tons of cards. These by the end of the game, there can be like 15 cards left in my deck easily. You can, and after I've cast Emergency Power, so you can in one turn you can draw 20 cards, no problem. Gates Ablaze sweeps the board. Great against go wide aggro, but even it's even pretty good against decks that make huge creatures. So that's why that's in there. It's pretty rare that this doesn't just clear the board. Okay, so Smothering Tithe was the engine. We already talked about that. Circuitous Route. I only run one of these. I didn't see it in the last like 3 games, but and maybe it's weak, but usually you're going like turn 3 or 4 Guild Summit, and then turn 4 or 5 Circuitous Route. So you're drawing 2 cards plus putting 2 land into play. You're only running 1. I don't think there's any problem with it if you presumably you just hit a Gates Ablaze, but maybe something to think about. Root Snare, Circuitous Route, and a couple of Lightning Strikes, maybe 1, are all maybe flex cards that you could bring in and out. 1,000 Year Storm. This is awesome. I think it is a required card for this deck. You have to get this in play or you're not going to win. Unless you change the win condition to like Revel in Riches or something. Then you have to add the 5th color. But yeah, makes the combo go off. A lot of times when I want to just like rack up my storm count, I'll cast a bunch of Root Snares and then finally do the Lightning Strike. But emergency powers, usually you're going to get one into the other. When you go off, this is going to give you tons of mana. I've gotten, 100 mana. Last game I got like 85. So basically all the mana you need to win the game comes from emergency powers and Smothering Tithe. And I just basically hold out until I think the opponent's starting to get some traction, and then I hit this. So, and then the rest of the deck is just your land. So 2 forests. If you time when you drop this, you can get back on the curve. So if you need say they're just like crazy aggro, turn 3, you can actually Gates Ablaze for 2 with the forest. Sometimes that pays off really well if the opponent went first and he managed to get like 4 creatures down. A lot of times, I just use it to kind of time some of the spells. So maybe turn 2, I throw the forest, grow a spiral, throw another Guildgate, so I've got 2 Guildgates in play. And then turn 3, we untap, throw another Guildgate down, so I actually can Gates Ablaze for 3 on turn 3, which is a good sweep, usually. So the forests just kind of help you control the tempo a little bit. And then the rest of the deck, we have 4 of the Azorius, Gruul, Selesnya, and Simic Guildgates, and 3 of the Boros and Izzet Guildgates. And I don't think that's super important which way you do that. And then 3 Plaza of Harmony. These are awesome. They also come into play untapped, so they're not Guildgates, so they don't count towards your count. So don't count those when you're planning your Gates Ablaze and stuff. But gains you 3 life when it comes into play, and taps for any color of mana usually, or any color you need. So pretty good. I'm running 3 because I only have 3, but I don't know if I ran 4, I would probably take out like a Root Snare or something, because it sort of gains you life anyway. They sort of end up serving the same purpose. So that is the deck tech. I've got a few games up right now on YouTube that you can watch. I'm not gonna just follow this one up with a video, but maybe I'll combine them later. We'll see. All right, thanks. Bye. Choo, choo, choo.